Greetings YouTube, Alan Lube back with another video. I can't believe I'm posting another video so shortly after my last one. But with heavy hitters coming out, the celebrational just happened, and calling's happening this weekend. Spoilers are all out. I just wanted to run through my thoughts on the new heroes, the new cards, potentially a new meta. So definitely a lot of more videos going to be coming. Be sure to, subscribe, like the video, comment, all that good stuff. Really makes me happy when I see your comments and I get to interact with you guys. But also, by the video title, you can probably see that I am quite high on Warrior for this upcoming meta. I have a lot of thoughts about Warrior. I think Warrior in general has a good matchup into Guardian, and with Bravo being, quote unquote, one of the top decks into the upcoming meta, then Warrior will definitely have a good time there. So I just wanted to go over a lot of the cards, a lot of my thoughts on the heroes, and I'll probably be doing one of these for each of the classes. I'll do one for Warrior, I'll do one for Brute, and then Guardian, and then maybe I'll do like a tier list prediction. I haven't done a tier list in so long. Oh my goodness. But yeah, let's get right into it. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers, which would be a nice milestone to hit. I don't know if I'll do like another giveaway type thing for that, just because I don't know. Whenever the last time I did a giveaway, it just kind of felt like my subscriber count was inflating, and it's just not my jazz. But I don't know. If you see me at like an event or something, just feel free to say hi, all that good stuff. All right, let's get into it. So let's talk about Kassai. I think a lot of people are very high on Kassai, myself included. I'm not like extremely high on her. I think she'll be competitive probably right out of the gate, but I do think she'll probably be the most complex to build. Just because she has the most things going on with her hero ability. If you draw a card, your swords cost 1 less, so you want cards that draw. You can banish 2 red and 2 yellow from your grave to give on hit make a gold from your weapons, and so you want to balance reds and yellows, and then you just have like you just want to balance a lot of things like go again, gold payoff, maybe gold generation, pumps, late game tools, aggro tools, etc. So there's really just a lot going on, and before we got all the spoilers, I definitely saw potential because we already have cards like Blade Runner and things like that. So Valiant Dynamo, those are all really good. But my main issue was I wasn't sure just how good she would be when she's, confronted with like a ninja where she needs to race. Like you can definitely get a lot of value if you go Centauri Saber into Centauri Saber, and then with a Blade Runner, you'll get like 7 and then 8. Wait, am I doing that math right? 2 plus 2, Blade Runner will give plus 3. So that's, 2 card 7. You get Valiant Dynamo. That's 2 card 8. That's amazing, right? Everyone loves 2 card 8. But in my mind, I don't think like just doing 2 card 8 every turn is really enough to beat like a good Katsu player or a good Fi player, things like that, because they can definitely just, eat some damage, go over the top, block when they want to, things like that. So initially, I wanted to look at blood on her hands. But they didn't provide any more copper generation in this set, so that means really you only have things like Outland Skirmish and Spoils of War to generate copper, and Spoils of War can definitely get you a good amount of copper, but it does seem like Blood on Her Hands is going to be less of like a racing card and more of like a late game setup card similar to Raise an Army. So because of that, I don't see them as tools in a race matchup. But overall, I do think she also has, the Nourishing Loop potential. And that's just because, you play Nourishing once, and if you have enough yellows in your grave, then you can use her ability to banish any attack actions in your grave. And when you find another Nourishing, you can play that again. And 6 Dominate, 5 Intellect, draw up is pretty good. So there's that. But overall, I'm not super sure how well she'll do right off the bat. I think just the inherent consistency and like good rate cards that Warrior has will probably mean she'll find some success in the beginning, but I don't think she'll really like get to the top of the meta unless people really start optimizing the deck to get it near perfect, because there's just so many factors that you can do, like even which chess piece to run, how do you sideboard in your Raisin Army or Blood on Your Hands, which matchups, what tools you have, things like that. So there's just really a lot going on with Kassai. But I do think one of the coolest things about getting into the game, specifically if you're a new player at the moment, is that Olympia and Kassai definitely seem to have like a lot of overlap in their card pool. And so because of that, a lot of people, and rightly so, worry about the whole Living Legend situation where, if a hero comes out and they're really good, they might not even last a whole year before they rotate. But with Kassai and Olympia looking like two potentially very good, one-handed sword wielders, there's a lot of overlap there. So if you don't like one, you can play the other. Although, some people might really like Kassai but not like Olympia, and vice versa. So take that as you will. But yeah, let's move on to Olympia. So let me see if I can move my camera for a brief second. No, my shadow is with it. Let me just put Kassai towards the bottom because we already talked about that. So Olympia, I think Olympia is more straightforward than Kassai. I mean, clearly his hero text is just way shorter. And his whole thing is just generate a bunch of gold. So every time you wager, or every time an attack on your turn wins a wager, you'll create a gold. And there's a lot of things you can do with gold. Since Olympia is more consistent at creating gold than Kassai and is faster at it, you can definitely expect him to maybe use cash in better or things like that. So I definitely think that off the bat, Olympia might perform better than Kassai just because he's simpler to build. Let me actually zoom out a little bit because it's a little big. Okay, sure, that's fine. So I think Olympia, like, just because his hero ability is so straightforward, it makes building his deck a lot simpler. He has more of a quote-unquote proactive game plan, and while I don't love using that term, it makes sense. Just the idea that, your hero ability really only does one thing, so you can really hone in on that one thing and be simpler. And the counter to that is that, maybe you can't put more cards to be better into certain matchups, whereas maybe Kassai can. Like, if fatigue becomes an issue, Kassai has Blood on her hands, she has Raisin Army, whereas Olympia, I guess you would kind of have to rely on building up a ton of gold and then using all that gold for like one big turn to go over. But then the issue with that is that if you have if you're playing against a deck that's blocking a lot, then it'll get hard to create gold because you're not winning your wagers. But Warrior in general has a lot of combat tricks and a lot of evasion sort of things. So I don't think Olympia will struggle too much there, but it's something to think about. And then lastly, let's talk about Dorinthea. Surprisingly, a lot of cards in this set help Dory a lot. So looking at the cards initially from spoiler season, it didn't seem like Dorinthea was getting too much in terms of support this set. But looking at the rest of the Warrior pool, there's a lot of cards that you can definitely see are just insta fits right into Dorinthea. And I'll basically be going through all the Warrior cards, but these are just my overall thoughts on the heroes. So since Dorinthea kind of already has a base to work around from years of other people playing her, shoutouts to Nixie NXI on YouTube, Shin, my good friend who's a Dory main. He's been playing Dory since I met him. He's been playing before me basically, and yeah, he's a great Dory player. And looking at all these spoilers, he's probably gonna buff up his Dory deck a lot. So Dory's definitely a deck that has a lot of factors to her. In an aggro matchup, Dawnblade can erase, and Dawnblade also is difficult to fatigue because sometimes you're overblocking as a Guardian or as a slower deck, and because of that, you thin your deck much faster than Dory will. And while if she strands cards, maybe her rate's not as good, but if she plays Steelblade Supremacy and you block 9, then it doesn't matter, at least on the sort of attrition fatigue axis of the game, then Dory's not losing there. Like, she's not going over, her rate's not, she's stranding a card, but your deck is getting more fatigued if you're blocking out very heavily. So I think Dory will definitely have a lot this set. And so it'll be really interesting to see, there's 3 warriors. I think all of them have competitive viability, and I probably will be looking to play a warrior at my next, maybe February Age event if I can get all the cards. So that's something to look forward to. So let's go into the cards. I'll keep this here on the side. I kind of wish I did this better, but it is what it is. So let's first look at Centauri Saber. We already have this card. Kassai's going to use it. Olympia can use it. Even Dory could dual wield if she wanted to, but it really seems like if you're going to dual wield, then you would rather play Kassai or Olympia. +1 if defended by attack action cards. A lot of the cards this set punish you for blocking with attack action cards, and that's really unfortunate for heroes like Bravo, who has a lot of attack action cards. Even a warrior like Boltyn has a lot of attack action cards, and even Betsy will probably run a lot of attack action cards. So depending how the meta turns out, Centauri Saber can be quite useful. The awkward thing about it is that a lot of attack action cards will block for 3, especially if you're thinking about a deck like Ranger. All their arrows block for 3. Guardian, most likely all their attack actions block for 3. But notably, there's another Majestic, where is it? Shift the Tide of Battle. Target warrior attack with attack greater than its base gets go again. So this is great because, Centauri Saber has the potential to buff itself up by 1. And because of that, Shift the Tide of Battle will turn on, etc. Moving on to Hot Streak. This is definitely another great weapon. A lot of people are dual wielding Centauri Saber and Hot Streak. When this is defended by 1 or more attack action cards, Hot Streak's attack gains go again, or attacks get go again this turn. So this one's quite interesting. I'm not sure how useful it actually is. It's more interesting in a deck like Dory, where her hero ability will allow her weapons to attack again. But I imagine that a lot of these warrior decks won't be too heavy on attack actions. Like, you might have CNC, you might have Nourishing. I kind of doubt you'll have things like, Snatch or E-Strike or things like that. You could run the 2-for-6 Agility Maker, Roadrunner or something like that. But usually that gets played at the start of the turn to pop your agility. So I don't know how useful this go again is. Maybe it's nice if you run things like E-Pot. So then if you have an E-Pot in Arsenal and it looks like your turn's over with Hot Streak, all of a sudden you get to end your turn with an Energy Potion. Could also be useful if you have Warmongers in your deck. Just basically other low-cost turn finishers that may be like a surprise for your opponent. So I don't necessarily think this is like an auto include, but at the same time, I can understand if every single deck runs Centauri Saber plus Hot Streak, for example. Moving on to Parry Blade, I think this is more of a limited card. Basically, it's just another 1-for-2 or one-handed weapon, but you can block with it once. You can block a weapon attack specifically. It gets 2 armor and it's Blade Break. I think this is quite niche, even against like a deck like Guardian, who's swinging their weapon a lot, or a Ninja, if you want to block like the second Kodachi or something. You would kind of just need to use this at like the exact moment at the end game where the turn after you can close the game, and it just seems too risky. I think the other weapons just have more upside throughout the game that I don't see this ever being played, but in a limited setting, I can definitely see this being quite big. Although it's a little awkward if, you block with this because you have to, and then because of that, you can't close out the game because you only have one weapon. Grains of Blood Spill. This chess piece is really cool, in my opinion. It gives me a lot of similar vibes to Tectonic Plating. Whenever a weapon attack you control hits, you may pay 1. If you do, create a Vigor token, and that Vigor token will pop the next turn, giving you another resource. So basically, if you ever have a turn where you have an extra resource with Warrior, you can spend that into things like Brave Forge Bracers, and now you can do it with Grains of Bloodspill, which to carry that resource over. And it's even better than Tectonic Plating in that Tectonic Plating only works on Guardian attack action cards. Grains of Bloodspill is just a straight resource. You can use it to pop, or the Vigor is just a straight resource. You can use it to pop gold. You can use it for, a non-attack. You can use it for your weapon. It's just a resource. And as long as your weapons are hitting, assuming at least one weapon hits every turn, you could just carry that resource over and over and over and over each turn until there's a turn where you want 4 resources to do something better with just 1 card, for example. So I think Grains of Bloodspill is a really cool card. I don't necessarily think it's like the only chess piece Warrior will use. For example, I think if you're ever up against a deck that wants to block a lot, you probably are just better off running Tunic because you'll just get that consistent value every 3 turns, especially if Guardian can block you out efficiently if they're on heavy D-reacts, things like that. But in a faster matchup, I can definitely see Grains of Bloodspill just being the way to go because your weapon attacks are very likely hitting, and if the Ninja deck or I don't even know what another aggro deck would be, like Boost Dash or something is not blocking, then you basically just have this on all the time. Prized Galea, Olympia specialization, head equipment, attack reaction, destroy this, or temper 2. Attack reaction, destroy this, cost 1. Target weapon, attack you control, wagers a gold token with the defending hero. So once again, we have another way to sort of pay an extra resource to do something on the equipment. If you have Grains, if you have Brave Forge Bracers, and if you have Prize Galea, that's a blue right there that you're converting into essentially 3 points of value. You can argue how much a gold is worth. It's a toss-up, really. But Brave Forge is +1. Grains of Bloodspill carries the resource. Prize Galea wagers an additional gold. And with Olympia, whenever you win a wager, you get another gold. So this is basically getting you somewhat 2 gold if you're ever like in a position where you get to use this. If you do attack react with this, you don't get that extra 1 block, but it seems like a lot of decks, that are running Crown of Providence or Scowling Fleshbag, or there's just a lot of 2-block helmets in the game, so only getting to 2 block with this and then using its effect is also pretty good. So, and I absolutely love that LSS made so many of these helmets rare. Like, the rarity is rare. It's extremely accessible, and, even if you can't buy a Grains of Bloodspill right away, if you already have Tunic, I'm sure that'll work just fine. You can run Courage. There's like so many alternatives, but just having these new ones as rare that a lot of players will definitely want to try out when the game comes out is pretty awesome. Although this does make me worry a little bit about limited. Like, if you find one of these 2-block rare helmets in your pack 1 pick 1, do you just go into that hero instantly? I don't know. But moving on, Hood of Red Sand. This is the Kassai card. Attack reaction, cost 1, banish a red and yellow card from your graveyard. Destroy this, target sword card gets, when this hits, draw a card, battle worn 1. So compared to the other helmets, you're only getting to block 1 instead of the 2, but drawing a card is really damn good. For example, let's say you swing with you pitch a blue, swing with your first saber, you Blade Runner, your arsenal's empty maybe. They don't block. You can use your extra resource to attack react this, banish a red and yellow from your grave. It hits, you draw a card, your next sword attack is free, you get to arsenal whatever card you just drew. It's kind of like having Snatch Up all the time, which is really annoying because your first saber is always coming in for 2, and you don't want to have to block that each and every turn. Sometimes they'll go, saber into go again into CNC, and then it's just playing against Warrior is so annoying, so I would rather just maybe play Warrior coming up. But yeah, I think this helmet is really good. You only get to use it 1 time. If you could use it more than once, it would be broken. But banishing reds and yellows are also very good because if you're on that Nourishing Loop plan, then you can just banish more attack actions that might have gone into your graveyard. Like if you play CNC and you don't have 2 yellows in your grave, you can get rid of one of the CNC with this effect, and then maybe play Nourishing the next turn, things like that. So overall, also a good card, also a rare, amazing. Beckon Applause. Honestly, this is just a limited card. It's temper 2, basically, if you have the tokens, but Brave Forge exists, Courage exists, so not going to talk too much about that. This video is going to be mostly CC focused. Blade Flurry, okay. Honestly, all of the Warrior Majestics, these 5, they're all cracked. I mean, 2 of them are specializations, so of course they'd be good, but the other 3 are also really damn good. Blade Flurry, target weapon attack gets +2. Your next weapon attack this turn gets +2. This is applicable to basically Dorinthea, Kassai, and Olympia. Kassai and Olympia, if you're dual wielding, this is perfect. It's a 0 for 4 attack react. For Olympia, if you're wagering all the time, this helps you get over blocks. If you're Kassai and you want to make gold with your hero ability, this helps you get over. Combat tricks, good. Dorinthea, already amazing. It's basically better Iron Song response. Iron Song response needs reprise in order to get +3. This is just better. You get +2 for your first attack to hit, and then your next attack's even bigger, which is the one that makes the counter. This card is going to be really good. And I'm not looking forward to playing against it. But anyways, moving on to the next one. Shift the Tide of Battle. This one is interesting. It's a yellow 0 cost. Target warrior attack with attack greater than its base gets go again. So it's similar to Glint in that it's a 0 cost go again enabler. It's yellow instead of blue, but next time your opponent is dealt damage this turn, you make an agility token, so that's really good. But your target warrior attack needs to have attack greater than its base. I like this card for 2 reasons. One, warrior is often running a lot of front pumps, so if you need to give your first weapon attack go again, that's fine. But for your second weapon attack, if like you're dual wielding sabers or something, or even if you're running hatchets, I think Olympia with hatchets is really interesting and is probably what I'm gonna build. But let's not talk about that. If you're building hatchets, your second axe will always be pumped. So if you ever need to extend your turn further beyond that, like you can go swing axe into swing axe, shift Tide of Battle, make an agility token, and then CNC, and your opponent's just like, well, damn, that just happened. So, but this card is also at the same time has like the lowest floor out of the Majestic cards. The ceiling can be really high, but it also has the lowest floor. So that's what I would say about that. Up the ante, Olympia Specialization. This card is great. It costs X, and you get to choose X+1 modes, where the modes are Wager Agility, Wager Gold, Wager Vigor, and Target Attack gets +Y, where Y is the number of times it has wagered. So let's say you play this costing 0. You basically get to choose 2 modes. Oftentimes, you're probably going to pick 2 wagers. Actually, no. If your opponent clean blocks, you get to pick another wager. Like if you need a Vigor, or if you need an Agility, you can get that, or even a Gold. Your Olympia Hero ability will make a Gold. You get to buff it up probably by +1 or 2, depending on if the attack already had wager on it before you reacted. But then, even if you give it +1 or +2, that might be enough to win the wager. Your opponent fails their blocks, you win all the tokens, you have a good time. If you pay 3 for this, you get to choose all 4 modes, and then you would make 2 golds, an agility, a vigor, and it would get +3, which, making 4 tokens and +3 for 2 cards is pretty good. It's less good if, you're straight up in a race and you just want to go, damage. But having those tokens carry over for the next turn means you can probably do some insane things. You can cash in. First thing has go again. You have an extra resource. Card is good. Commanding Performance. This card is the one I'm least excited about as a Guardian player. Costs 1. Action blocks 3. Your next warrior attack this turn gets +3 until end of turn. Your warrior attacks get, when this is defended by 1 or more attack action cards, destroy a card in the defending hero's arsenal. So I kind of hate this because if my hand is full of attack actions, which for Guardian is often the case, sometimes you can block with the Showtime, the Imposing, or the Pummel or the Sink or whatever. But if your hand is full of attack actions, this is horrible because if you have a defense reaction in your arsenal, you can't block with an attack action first because then the effect will trigger before you go into reactions. So then your arsenal just gets popped. It's 1 for 3. It's go again. It's fairly on rate. I don't think it's a card you will run in a race, for example, but against slower matchup, this card absolutely goes in. It just feels like Emboldened Blade, but kind of better, specifically against decks that have a lot of attack actions. So you can build your deck in a way, I guess, as more warriors enter the meta, other decks like Guardian will be more incentivized to play more non-attacks like Imposing, Showtime, all that jazz. I already have those in my deck, and sometimes I think about cutting them, but with these new warriors coming in, I probably won't. Raise an Army. This one's been spoiled for a while. You destroy your gold. You make your Centauri Cell Swords. They're 3/2s. Costs 1 to attack. They have go again if you attacked with a weapon this turn. So this is another Kassai tool that helps you in longer games to really sort of like close the game, basically. And yeah, I mean, the card's good, but my thought about Kassai specifically is that I don't think she needs to worry about games that go long, like against Guardian or other warriors. I'm more interested in what tools you can put into her that help her into ninjas, into boost dash, into I don't know what other aggro decks there are, but aggro decks basically. So moving on, let's quickly go over these rares and commons. Video has gone on a while, but we're getting there. Cut the Deck. I think this card's insane. Well, not insane, but the card's pretty good. It's a 1 for 3. If it's defended by an attack action, draw a card, then put a card from your hand or arsenal on the bottom of your deck. So 1 for 3 isn't an amazing rate, but when you're wagering with Olympia, for example, or if you're trying to make gold with Kassai, having combat tricks is good. And then being able to cycle potentially your arsenal or any card from your hand is good. This is basically just better stroke of foresight, but with the condition that they need to block with an attack action card. So in Warrior Mirror matchups, maybe this is a card you take out, for example, because you're going to be blocking with non-attack actions and attack reactions the whole time. But I think the card is good, especially in certain matchups. Fatal Engagement, I think this is more of a limited card. I think 2 for 5, a conditional 2 for 5 is too hard to play in CC. So I'm just going to move on from there. Take the upper hand. This card's great in Olympia. It's okay in Kassai because I don't know how much wager Kassai will really run, but Olympia will definitely have a lot of wager. And 0 for 3, plus 3 is great, especially when you're wagering because you want to go over to make those golds. I think in general, Olympia will have an easier time winning wagers because giving Dawnblade a counter is like the worst thing you can do, but giving Olympia 1 gold is not the end of the world. So maybe that is the case, though. Maybe people will end up respecting Olympia wagers as much. But yeah, that's my general take on that. Card is good. Agile Engagement, 1 for 3. Once again, if it's defended by attack action card, create an agility token. It blocks 2, so it has more downside. And I'm not quite sure this makes the cut in CC, but agility is really good. But the fact that it's conditional is a big question mark. But considering that the warrior card pool is getting so big, you definitely will need to tech for the metagame in a way. Like maybe if these warriors all become really good, maybe decks that naturally run a lot of attack action cards phase out of the meta a little bit. Like if you're playing against Katsu, this is great because most of his cards are attack actions. Like you can get flick-flacked and things like that, but yeah, I think the block 2 is just quite a big downside for a card that's conditional, and I think the same thing for Vicious Engagement. It's the same thing, but with Vigor. Once again, meta-dependent. Draw Swords. I think this is mostly a Kassai card than Dory or Olympia. Next warrior attack this turn gains +3, draw a card, go again. So it's if you count the blue you're paying into Draw Swords as getting replaced by the card you draw, it's basically a 0 for 3, but it's also draw a card, so it means your sword attacks are free for Kassai, but there's the off chance that you don't draw another blue, which you may have needed, or maybe you have 2 blues in your hand as Kassai, and you want to filter one of them so you can get another red. Overall, I think the card is probably a staple in Kassai. It's really good, but it doesn't really fit into the other warriors as much. Edge Ahead, this card is really good. Wager agility. Next warrior attack this turn gets +3. With Olympia, who's more straightforward to build, you can fill your deck more with wager and pumps. Whereas with Kassai, you have more things going on. So I still think, I'm not sure if you'd run this in Kassai. Agility is really good for warrior in general, because a lot of the times, like a lot of these pumps are 1 for 3, right? Or a lot of these non-attacks that pump are 1 for 3. So if you're playing Kassai and your turn is, sword, Blade Runner, sword, that's already 3 resources. If you don't have a vigor, it gets a little awkward. But if you're wagering and you get an agility token, then you don't need the Blade Runner, that frees up a resource. If you wager vigor instead, then you can. Where's the one that wages vigor? Is there one? Maybe not. But yeah. Overall, it's good. I'm not sure if it makes the cut in every deck, but it definitely makes the cut in Olympia. Engage Swiftblade. Your next warrior attack is +3. If it is defended by attack action card, this gets go again. This one I don't think is very good. Once again, it's conditional go again. So it's interesting because if, for example, you play this and you also wager your sword attack, maybe your opponent doesn't want to block, and they'll give you the tokens because they don't want you to swing again and maybe end your turn, but then you hit them with the Glint, or you hit them with the... What's that card? Shift the Tides of Battle. You're like, oh, I have go again anyways, and you just gave me all these tokens. I don't know. It seems okay. Conditional go again is questionable, but maybe it finds a place. I'm not sure. Hold'em. This one is the wage vigor. Yes. So there's another one. Hold'em. Next warrior attack +3. Wages vigor. Vigor is just really good. Like 1 extra resource is really huge for these warrior decks because there's a lot of good 2-card hands, but not a lot of good 3-card hands and decent 4-card hands. 5-card hands, I don't know. I haven't thought that far. But for example, if you're thinking 2-card hand, it's a blue and a Blade Runner, for example. If you have another 1 for 3, then you would need Tunic, or you would need an extra resource from Vigor, or from the chess piece, Grains of Bloodspill. So in general, Vigor is also really good. Goblet of Blood Run Wine. I think this one probably just makes the cut because it's a blue, even though it's a 2-block. It's a blue, but you make it Agility and a Vigor. Let's assume those are worth 2. And then, so that means it's basically 0 for 2, go again. So it's pretty good. It blocks 2, which is a little awkward. But 0 for 2, go again, 2 block is pretty standard if you think of a card like Wounded Bull or Wounding Blow. Sorry, not Wounded Bull. Wounding Blow, for example, is a 0 for 2, block 3, but not go again. So this card is pretty good. It might even make the cut in like every warrior deck, to be honest. Like this card might just be insane. But we'll see. I could be wrong. So those are all the warrior specific cards. This is the Sellsword. If you haven't seen it earlier, I described it earlier. Let me look at all of the hybrid cards to see some other warrior cards. Runner. Oh, it's not Roadrunner, it's Runner. So this card's pretty good. If you have an agility token, it basically recreates your agility token. It's also a popper, which is pretty important. So I imagine this card will go into a lot of warrior decks like Kassai and Olympia. But in terms of how good the card actually is, I'm not sure. I feel like if, for example, you want to cut down on costs, you probably could cut this and the deck would still largely remain fine, and it's more so really good for Jomai and for extending turns when you have, say, a 4-card hand, right? Because if you have a 2-card hand, then it's, blue and Blade Runner. But if you have another blue and a runner, then that's pretty good. But conditional that you have an agility already, I can't think of any other ways to give this go again unless you have a Quicken, and there's no way you're playing Flock. I've tried that card so many times. It's just not good. But other ways to give it go again, even bigger. No way. I don't know. Mainly agility, right? You have a lot of agility cards in your deck, and this is just helping you extend your turns. You don't always have to play this. You can block with it. It blocks 3. It's perfectly fine. It's a good card. I think it makes the dual-handed decks, or just the agility decks in general, but you're probably not going to necessarily always mainboard it. Although maybe you do. Maybe it's one of those extenders that you really need. Clash of Agility. Warriors, you don't really want to clash. You don't run that many attacks. If you're thinking of some hybrid attack action, sword pumping, attack reacting deck, maybe. But in general, I don't think this will see any play outside of limited and warrior. Take it on the chin. This one's... Okay. That's quite a name for a card. But anyways, 0 costs, prevents 2 damage. Damage prevention is pretty good to play around combat tricks. It's definitely way lower rate than something like Sink Below. But if you do, you create an agility. So that's pretty good. I'm not sure how to feel about this, because if you count the agility once again as 1, then this is basically 0 for 3. Maybe in some world this agility is really important, so you can maybe say it's worth 2. In general, I would say it's probably just worth 1, but I don't know. I don't love it, but at the same time, maybe it's okay, especially if you're playing against something like Kano. This could be good. It's a red that makes an agility and prevents 2 damage, helps facilitate your own turns, and on a wildfire turn, you block 2 damage from wildfire, which is pretty good. Oasis costing 1 is probably one of the biggest downsides of the card. But yeah, so I think card is fine. Does it make the cut in CC decks? I don't know. Brute Warrior block. When this defends, if you control an agility, deal 1 damage to the attacking hero. I probably wouldn't play this. I don't love block cards in general. I think, for example, like in Guardian or in Brute, block cards make a lot more sense, especially the ones that clash, because you have a lot of big power cards. But in Warrior, I don't love it, because in general, I find Warrior to be more proactive than Brute and Guardian. And if you're ever in a situation where this is your last card, you can't arsenal it, you would have to wait for like that one card that... Yeah, I don't know. What was the card called? Cut the deck? Yeah, cut the deck to cycle this out from your arsenal, but like you're not going to do that. But anyways, Moving on. Where was I? I was at run into trouble. Okay, test of agility. Once again, like this one, I could see you run in brute, but not in warrior, especially because you're a weapon-based deck. You're not going to win your clashes all of the time. So, moving on. Agile wind up. I think this card in yellow is really good. It makes sense. It's 6. It's a popper. If you have this as an extra card on turn 1 or turn 2, you can just ditch it, make an agility, call it a day. It's a 2-block, which is a little awkward, but that's okay. Especially for Kassai, you want more yellows. In Olympia, if you need a popper, then it's still a yellow, so maybe you can do something on your turn, but it's not amazing. But yeah, I think the card is good. It probably will see play in decks. Rising Speed. If you've drawn a card this turn, this gets go again. Maybe in Kassai, this makes, well, in Olympia, you have the gold to draw cards too. 2 for 5, go again, block 2. This is already a card. I'm trying to remember the name of the card. Rising Rebellion, I believe, in Uprising. And that card sees no play. So I'm gonna extend the same belief. In Limited, perfectly fine. Especially because fatigue is probably an axis you have to think about in Limited. So having bigger attacks is pretty good. Wage Agility. 3 for 7. When this attacks, you may wager an agility. In general, I don't love the 3 for 7 wager cards that block 2. I think there's enough tools and cards in the card pool where you don't really want to run these. And maybe in a world where, you're playing against Romai and this is maybe the next best popper, maybe. I haven't really thought that out yet. Lead with Speed. In general, I really like the 1 for 3 create a token cards, even though they block 2. Like in Betsy, you have the 1 for 3 make a might. You have the 1 for 3 make an agility. And is there a 1 for 3 make a vigor? I'm not sure. We'll see. But yeah, 1 for 3 create an agility. It's basically 1 for 4 go again. It's a non-attack. So if you're on Kassai, that's less attack actions for your nourishing, things like that. If you're on Olympia, you want to loop your sword attacks and things like that. Card is good. And it's non-discriminative or it's a warrior attack. So it could be a warrior attack action, for example, if you wanted to play wage agility or something. But I guess for warrior in general, you're mainly going to be attacking with your weapons and the occasional CNC or nourishing here and there. So, but still, I think this card is good. It facilitates your next turn. It's a 1 for 3, and it's all good and dandy. Vigor, girth. Yeah, limited card. Double Down. This one definitely is playable in both Kassai and Olympia. It's more interesting for Olympia, I think, because he has more cards that wager. So this only buffs cards that has wager, and it gives it +3 in overpower. If a hero would create 1 or more tokens from a wager this turn, and instead they create that many +1 of each of those tokens. So I'm not sure how this reacts with Olympia. Like if you are waging Vigor with Olympia and you double down, do you then only make 2 Vigor, or do you make 2 Vigor and 2 gold from Olympia's ability? I'm not sure. Well, it says from a wager, specifically wager, so it's only 2 Vigor. You wouldn't make double gold, but you still get 1 gold from Olympia's hero ability. So I see this more as a card that you can put in Olympia. Probably not as good in Kassai, but maybe it's okay. I'm not sure. Having some kind of evasion, whether it's dominate or overpower, is pretty good, especially for longer matchups. And even for racing matchups, this is pretty good because you get to, it's a 0 for 3, block 3, and then if you destroy gold, and then you create more tokens, which, facilitate your future turns. Clash of Vigor. Once again, don't really love Clash and Warrior. Let's move on. Slap Happy. Another 0 for 2 instant damage blocker, but instead creates a Vigor token. Again, not sure if this will see play in CC. It could, but who knows? I don't know. Another block card, once again. Don't really love block cards in general. Probably will be important to draft for Limited because you might just die to overpower from Betsy all the time if you don't have enough block. But at least in CC, when you have a huge armor suite to lean on, I don't love block in general unless there's a major upside. Test of Vigor, it's another Clash block. Not super applicable to Warrior again, in my opinion. Rising Energy, if you draw on a card, this costs 1 less to play. This one's pretty interesting just because, for example, in Olympia, this turns into a 1 for 6, 2 block. But similar to Outsiders, there was it Ronin Renegade? I forgot the card, but there was a card that was 1 for 4, and if it like gets blocked, then it turns into a 1 for 6 or something. Don't quite exactly recall. But 1 for 6, once again, this is a popper, so that's something to consider. But if you've drawn a card and you have gold, I'm iffy on this card, but maybe. We'll see. Vigorous Windup. Discard this, create a Vigor token. I'm not sure if this is better than the other one, for example, the Agile Windup. Maybe it is, because yeah, I really can't tell. I think I would probably prefer Agile Windup than Vigorous Windup, but they both have similar effects. But I think the agility maybe is just a little bit more important than a Vigor token, because with agility, it is the one that really starts your turn. If you're missing agility, or if you're missing Go Again in some form in these decks, your turn is like really bad. If you have an extra resource, you maybe can have a really good turn with, say, 3 cards. But yeah, once again, unsure. Wage Vigor, once again, don't love these 3 for 7 Wage block 2 cards. Lead with Heart. This one is interesting. Your next Guardian Warrior attack this turn gets +3, create a Vigor. It's unconditional. There's no wager to it. It's just a pump. You make a Vigor. So that's pretty good. Whether or not it makes the cut over the... or it comes into decks, I'm not sure. Lead with Speed, I prefer a little bit. But once again, similar to Agility versus Vigor. But card is still good. Whether I haven't built the deck yet, so maybe it goes in. I'm not sure. And those seem to be all the hybrid warrior cards. Did I accidentally look at some Guardian? Oh, no. I skipped them. Okay, so at the bottom. Okay. I don't really want to talk about generics too much because this video is already getting pretty long. But Money Where Your Mouth Is, huge for both probably Kassai and Olympia. It might even be good in a lot of decks because it undiscriminately buffs attacks, not just weapon attacks or attack actions. Like even if you run this in Bravo, for example, you can come in with Spinal for 12 or Anathos for 9, which is pretty good. Waging Gold, also pretty good. So it's interesting. This is a card that I will definitely get 3 of instantly. All the expansion slot cards are pretty interesting also, but I probably will cover generics and expansion slot cards in another video. This video's already gone quite long. So overall, what are my thoughts? Dorinthea is already a niche but solid deck, but I do think that we'll see more Dorinthea once she has all these new tools. There's definitely a lot of cards like Commanding Performance that slots right into Dorinthea. Blade Flurry slots right into Dorinthea. Shift the Tide of Battle is really good in Dorinthea also. There's just a lot of things. And agility tokens in Dorinthea is really scary because that means they can just pay 1, swing Dawnblade, have 2 cards in hand in an arsenal, and you're like, are you going to block me? I don't know. So maybe with all these warrior cards, more defense reactions will come into the game. But anyways, and then moving on to the Kassai, extremely strong hero ability, nourishing potential, blood on her hands, and Raisin Army are both really good tools for finishing longer games. But I will need to work out and see how she does into faster matchups. And then Olympia has how do I want to phrase this? It's like sneaky how good his hero ability is. Like it doesn't seem like it's very good. There's a word I'm thinking of, but I can't think of it right now. But he's a sleeper hero. There we go. I think his hero ability doesn't seem that amazing, but once you like start seeing it and seeing how much gold he generates and what that can turn into, whether you're playing cash in or you're pitching 2 blues to draw a bunch of cards or a blue and a vigor to draw some cards or to draw 4, I definitely think Olympia has a lot of potential also. And I think he'll probably, come out the gate similar to how Max came out initially with more interest because of Max was a bit more straightforward to build compared to something like Dash.io. I compare Kassai more to something like Dash.io. I don't think necessarily her play lines are as difficult as Dash.io, but at least the deck building question and challenge. So those are my thoughts on the Warrior. I definitely think similar to how Outsiders really showed Ranger a lot of love, Heavy Hitters is definitely showing Brute and Warrior a lot of love, so I won't I do expect them to have a much bigger meta share in the upcoming events. In terms of Guardian, I think Bravo is already a good hero. He doesn't need the extra help. Maybe there's some cards in here that will help him, but in terms of Betsy and Victor, we'll see how impactful they are on the meta. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Warrior. This video has already gotten pretty long, so I'll just cut it off there. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please comment your favorite fruit down below. Okay, see ya.